go. Awesome. So guys, as you can see, Jill Wise has joined us. We're really excited to have her here to talk about a bit around copy that converts. This was a really great workshop last year and very interactive. So if you have questions, this is a good person to talk to around, assisting your conversions through, powerful writing in a whole bunch of different ways. And Jill has been gracious enough to donate her time to all of you. So yeah, listen up, pay attention, and make sure to ask questions. So I'm going to read Jill's bio here just so you guys get a little bit of a background. I have some stuff on FOL about her as well as the slides for today are posted on there if you need them. So Jill is a brand and marketing strategist, a business coach, as well as a conversion copywriter. And not fitting, quite into one single title, Jill is, a business and marketing problem solver. That's how she describes herself. And she pushes through the noise of the online world and the rules of what you're supposed to do. Instead guiding her clients to show up authentically as they build, grow, and scale businesses that feel good to them. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Jill. If you need anything from me, I'm here the whole time. Jenny and Kelsey are also here if you have any, if you need any assistance.
Cool. It always feels weird hearing people read about you and introduce you. I'm like, that never feels okay. Anyways, I'm Jill. I am super casual and I tend to talk really fast. So you guys can feel free to interrupt me. Like I was saying before, when you guys are all on your break, I have my slides, I have things that I want to talk about, but I also like to make sure that this is exactly what you need. So if there's something that you're like, hey, I don't really get that, or if you're like, Jill, this is old news, we don't need to talk about that, then let me know and we can kind of breeze through those parts and get to the good stuff instead. I'm also totally open to actually looking at some of your stuff. So if we get to a point and I ask you, is anyone working on this? Then go ahead and whoever is brave enough, tell me, and we can pull up your website, for example, or some of your social media posts, wherever there are words, we can look at it. So if that sounds good to you guys, then I'll pull up my slides to get started, which I'm probably gonna run into some tech issues while this happens because it never is smooth. Slides, the Zoom bar always gets in the way when I'm waiting. Oh, from beginning. Cool, can everyone see that? Thumbs up? Okay, so I've got slides here and I've got my notes over here. So I'm gonna be going back and forth. So that's why I'm literally okay if you unmute yourself if I don't see you putting your hand up. So today we're gonna talk about copy that converts, but before you can actually write copy, we actually need to talk about your brand and your positioning and how you're going to show up in general, and then we get into how to write copy that connects with those ideal customers that you want to start buying your stuff so that you can grow your business. So my very first question for you is, what is a brand? Does anybody know what this is? Have you guys covered this? Do you know what the definition is of a brand? Yeah, I see some nods. Nods, okay. So just in general summary, a brand is the perception that people have of your business. So it's more than just the logo, it's more than just the messaging, it's that overall feeling that people get when they hear your business name. And you can shape that perception through the personality that you convey in your marketing. So it's rather than oh, what do I want my logo to look like? It's what do I want to be known for and how do I want to make people feel? And that's kind of where we start with all of this. And when you start thinking about branding and copying and stuff like this, from that perspective, then you can start to think about what are the stories that I can be telling in order to connect with people? And what can I say now in order to make them feel a certain way about me or my business? So that's just kind of a prerequisite. And there's so much that we can get into with branding, but I just want you to have that general awareness before even starting to write anything. And then next, if we start talking about copy versus content, there's a difference here too. And I know lots of people will use these words interchangeably on the internet, but they're totally different. So I should have asked you what it was before I put the answers up on the screen here, but essentially copy is meant to sell something when content is an engagement tool. So copy is direct and persuasive. The intent is to sell. So every single word is chosen strategically to drive the sale. That's why you see things like incorporating voice of customer, and why you see ad campaigns that might just be a few words. They cost thousands of dollars because you're just being so specific with every single word that's chosen in order to increase those conversions. And then in order to sell, copy targets the emotions of the reader, and you also have to showcase the results of purchasing. So there's just so many different pieces that go into copy. And copy, we see it on the internet in website copy, digital advertisements, and email sequences, some social media posts, some videos, that kind of thing. Versus content writing is that engagement tool used to attract, educate, or inspire potential customers. It's a relationship builder versus an action driver, and it usually uses free value to generate traffic. So if you look at like your social media or blog posts and articles, or some emails, if you have an email list and you're sending out free value all the time, those are the content pieces, and they pair well with the copy, but you just need to understand what the difference is so that when you're writing, you have that clear end goal in mind, and then it makes it a lot easier, and you're not sitting there stressing about what to say, because you know, I am writing a piece of copy right now versus I am writing a piece of content. So then that will change what your goals are for each piece. Is everybody following along with the difference here? Good, okay. Cool. So then if we start thinking about why people buy from us, then we come to this page here. So if you want people to buy from you, they need to know, like, and trust you or your business, which essentially means that they need to feel connected in some way. So then you're probably thinking, well, how do I get people to like my brand? Like, it's a business, right? So the first way you do that is through storytelling. So people understand to and connect with stories. And if you think about it, like humans in general, like we all tell stories. We get home from work and we start telling stories to our spouses or roommates or friends or whatever. Like this is how we connect. Like when we've been apart from people, we start telling them that. And then also those stories start to become a piece of who we are. And you can do that within your business as well. You can pick out those key stories that will connect with your ideal clients. And you pick out ones strategically that you know will connect, or at least you think they will, and you experiment with those and you run with them. But then at the same time, we need to be really consistent. So like you can't just come in and tell a story one day and hope for conversions. You have to consistently show up with that story all the time. You have to actually make sure that you're showing up for your people. Because if you think about those businesses that you buy from, you see them often. You feel like you know them. You feel like you identify them with them in some way. They're not just coming in and saying, "Hey, look at me and buy this thing," and then they disappear, because nobody wants to be sold to like that, and nobody will actually trust you like that. So thinking about your stories, what makes you unique? What specific things can you say to connect with your ideal clients? And then how can you get that into some sort of system that is consistent over time so that people start to recognize you? Because they might see you once, that doesn't matter to them. But if they see you a bunch of times and you're always there for them, then you're going to be that person that they think of at the end of the day when they need the solution to what their problem is. So also, the third thing that we can do is the similarities. So I kind of touched on this with talking about the stories and choosing ones strategically that connect with your ideal client. But you want to find similarities between you and your audience, because people naturally feel connected to those that they feel they have similarities with. So we want to play on that. It's just like this piece of human nature. Like we're all a little bit selfish, and that's okay. But like we look to people that we have something in common with. To give you an example with this, if you think of when you're traveling, when we can travel eventually, hopefully, but if you're like over in Europe somewhere and you meet a Canadian and they're actually from like Calgary, but you're in London, Ontario, you probably feel super connected with them because they're also a Canadian away from you. But if you meet someone from Calgary when you're in London, Ontario, you might not feel as connected to them because there's not so many similarities in that case. So it's just finding those similarities with those people that are going to mean something to them in the moment. And I can give you an example from my own business. So I use the story of my growth to connect a lot with new entrepreneurs who then become customers of like my template shop and my courses, because they feel connected to that journey and the struggles that I had. But those stories might not mean the same thing when I'm trying to connect with a business that's a little bit farther along, because the thing that they're focusing at that time is scaling. So then they come to me because I know that I've done something along the lines of that. So like finding those similarities and using those in the spots where they'll mean the most to the audience that you're trying to connect with. So then at the same time, we start to think about, well, how do I share all of me or all of my business or everything? Because there's so much that goes into it, and you guys are working so hard to build these businesses, but it's impossible to share everything. You can't share everything. So that's why just looking at all the stories you do have and getting to know your ideal customers really well and starting to pinpoint the specific pieces that you think are going to be the most effective. So then to get to know them, you need to really start listening to your audience and actually having conversations with them. And then you could even ask them like what parts of the stories they connect with the most. So has anybody ever like actually talked to their audience? Have you guys gone through that process at all? Like customer interviews or surveys or anything like that? Yes? Yes, yes, no, everyone?
Some have not, I think, at this point.
Okay, so if you haven't yet, I mean, it's so valuable, like priceless information. If you can get your ideal customers on a Zoom call, it's priceless information. That's how I have actually written a lot of my copy. That's how I write a lot of copy for clients, is we get their customers on Zoom calls and they basically tell us what to say, because they tell us what they feel connected with, and they tell us what their struggles are, and they describe the specific words for us. So then we can pick out those similarities, and then we can put together a consistent plan and start telling stories in ways that really connect with them. And all of that ties back to this number one rule that I put at the bottom of the slide here, which is remembering that it's not actually about you or your business when you're in business. It's about what you can do for your clients, how you solve their problems, how you help them, and what they need. So when you can shift that perspective, then it makes it a whole lot easier, because instead of it being like, how do I share everything about me and my business and everything that I've done? And instead, what do my people need to hear right now? So if you haven't talked to your customers yet, I would 10 out of 10 suggest doing that. Okay, so that was a little bit of theory, but now I want to get into some actionable, actually copywriting tips so that you know what you should be saying and what you should be writing like if you want to convert. So the first rule is don't listen to anything you learned in school. Forget everything that you learned about writing in school, because they did not teach us how to write copy in school, unless of course you went and actually studied copywriting classes like I did. But the thing is, we have this really academic sound when we come from writing in school, especially if you're like fresh out of college or university, like that MLA format. Ditch that. Remember your grammar rules, because that is really important. If you guys know the example of like, let's eat comma grandma versus let's eat grandma, the difference being the one is saying, well, you're actually going to eat your grandmother, with otherwise telling your grandmother you want to eat with her. So yeah, remember your grammar rules, but forget the academic sound. Ditch those overly long sentences. Stop using multiple words where one will suffice, because no one cares about word counts anymore. And ditch that omniscient voice, which is like that narrator, that bird's eye view. We don't want that. Instead, we want to speak conversationally. We want to vary our sentence lengths. We want to actually speak how we sound, and we want to speak directly to the reader. So that's why in good copy, you'll see a lot of you and I versus, or you and we, if it's like a business agency kind of setup, versus the business does or the customers do. It's you and I. We're just talking. We're having a conversation. And the pushback here is that a lot of the times people think, well, then it's not going to be professional if I'm not following these rules that I learned in school. But it still is professional, and there's still ways to show up as professional. It's just, instead of being like that outside force, you're going to start talking directly to your customer and guiding them from point A to point B to actually making that sale.
I just have a question about that.
Okay.
Would it be the same like with like, because a lot of us are business to customer, but we're business to business. I'm just wondering if like that rings true like the same way.
Yeah. So even though it's business to business, like I'm technically business to business, and I work with a lot of people that are B2B too. It's still a human who's reading. It's still somebody there. And depending on what kind of business it is, like you could be talking to like the HR person or whatever, it's still a human who's reading the screen. There's still a person. They still have specific problems and challenges. And those ones will be tied to the business as a whole collective, but you want to be speaking to them directly. you do see people in like that really corporate-y kind of world not following this rule, but trust me when I say it's a lot more effective if you can really connect with that person on the other side of the screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Does anyone else have any other questions here?
I have a question.
Cool.
I've heard before that even if you're like a one-woman business, it's better to say we. Is that true? Like, does that make people trust you anymore or anything?
No, that might even make them trust you less depending on what your whole positioning is. So the I versus we debate has absolutely nothing to do with like what so-and-so said, like you should do the proper way. It's instead about like, what do your ideal customers want from you? And are you going to be the face of the business? So using myself as an example, just because it's easy, I have people that I pay. Like I don't have employees, but I do have a small team. That I have people that are in like supportive roles. I'm still I, and I'm always going to be I, regardless of how big my team gets, because I've decided I am going to be the face of this. I am the thought leader behind all of it. I could go the route of like building an agency instead, and I could be a we, and it wouldn't have mattered if I did that, even if it was just me back in the day, because I'm building out that collective, that different personality, that other voice. So it doesn't really matter like what makes you seem bigger. What's more important is that people feel connected. So if you're just trying to be a we to fake it because somebody said that you need to seem professional, that's not going to connect as well as you just showing up as, hey, it's me. Like I am the business. Like that makes it a lot easier for people to connect, that transparency, I guess. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Chat question. API, yeah. Yeah, so you want to, I know it's hard if you guys are definitely just coming out of courses to kind of switch your mindset around, but something that I've recommended to other clients that have been doing school at the same time, like one of my clients is an MBA student, so like coming from that academic world to the business world is like, if you can set aside a day that's like your school day and a day that's like your business day, or just like separate that in your mind, then it helps a lot, because it's a totally different writing style and you just want to speak like you are, like your business is, and then that transparency will help build trust. Are we good for questions on?
Just to comment on that further, I feel like I had to switch into that mentality for that course. So my default is probably more aligned with copywriting in general, as opposed to getting into that mindset for a course.
Cool. That's good then. I think it's easier to switch into the academic than it is to switch out.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, like I can always write like a really corporate sounding email, but to do the opposite, I feel like it's really hard and people get a lot of pushback, especially the double spaces. If you are double spacing between things in your business's copy, like stop doing that.
Yeah, no. You need that space. That space is crucial.
No, the double spacing, like you can't have that in copy. It looks, the people will know that it's academic, right? So those are little nuances, and you get to come up with your own rules for all of that kind of formatting too. But just the general idea is talk to your people like they're actually people, because customers are people. They're not just dollar signs.
That
and
makes
when
a
you,
lot of sense.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions here? We want to go on to the next bit. Quiet, so I'll go to next. Okay, so I figured next I would talk about your, like what you should actually write. So you have an idea of like how you should be writing, but what should you actually write? And you might have heard about benefits and features before, but I think the better way to explain this is by talking about the transformation that you are offering people. So you want to lead with the benefits or the results, show them what it's like working with you, what it's like buying your product, what can you give them, what's that big promise? Big promise is a huge thing in copy, because you need to know what that big promise is before you start writing anything, otherwise it's not going to work. And then at the same time, you need to think about how is it going to make people feel? Like what emotions are involved? Because those emotions are huge. Buying is an emotional decision, not a logical decision. Even though we like to think that we're really logical, human beings are not. We do everything based on emotion. So you need to play into that. and let them know that you know exactly how they feel. Like the best copy tells the reader, hey, I see you and here's how I can help you. So that's where you start first. And then the reader will be like, oh, this sounds great. Like this is for me. And then they go and they validate their decision that they've already made with the features. So that comes second. And then they go back to their spouse or whatever, and they say, oh, I'm going to buy this thing because it has X, Y, and Z features. But they already made the decision based on that emotional big promise packed in with like everything that they're feeling, if that makes sense. So once they're hooked, then you can remind them of your credibility. Also, like things like what's included in the cost, or if you're offering a service, can you offer any bonuses? Or if you're selling a product, can you sell them on the entire brand? Like just the things that back up the credibility of the brand. And I can give you an example from my business. So when we're looking at the conversion copy that I sell, I don't just sell word counts. I write words that put in work to make you more sales. I tell stories that connect with your target customers and grow your audience. I help you strategically position your business within the market to clarify your brand's messaging so that the entire team can represent it together. And the results? Well, my clients have had 3 times their income the month after launching. They've closed $100,000 in contracts within 2 months of working with me. They've hit 5-figure months and 6-figure years as a solopreneur. And that could be you. That sounds a whole lot better than me saying, well, I have this package and I can write you about 1,000 words of website copy and give you about 5 hours of my time, right? So you want to start thinking about those big promises first and those results first and that transformation first. I could even take it a step bigger than that. And I do in my copy is like, I help you get the things that you want. I help you reach those goals that people say that you can't do because like I was you once. And then I back it up with the credibility. Well, I'm educated, I have all of this experience, and here's the features that are included, and here's the breakdown of what's in your proposal. And then people think that they're buying based on those features, but they're already sold at the beginning, if that makes sense. And then if you look at products, you can do this as well. So with products, I typically like to look at the larger movement that the brand is selling. Like it's not just the products, usually there's something else behind it. And of course, your products need to be great, but there's usually some way to get people to buy into that overall mission as well in the beginning. So if we think about like Apple versus Samsung, there's so many people that identify with Apple products specifically. And lots of people feel like really attached to their smartphone decision, like it's a piece of them. And that's because of the culture of the brand, because they're selling that movement instead of just the product. Like I tried Apple products. I'm not an Apple product kind of person. Like I love my Samsung phone and I'm so attached to it. And it just becomes like this piece of like who you are. And if you start to think about the brands that you use and trust, it comes back into those larger movements. Is everyone good here? Do we get this? Cool, I see lots of nodding. Now I want to give some time to maybe talk about your own stuff. So I thought maybe we could talk about some website copy tips. And if anyone wants to, we could do some like quick audits here. If anyone is brave enough to, because I figured most of you would have a website or at least are thinking about it. What do we think? I'm like looking for a brave volunteer, or we can just talk about the general tips.
I just put in my website, but I don't even know if we have anything like on there really.
That's okay.
We have like a blog, but it's not really like up. We don't really have any customers yet.
Okay.
It's kind of sturdy.
So if nobody has that fully ready yet, we can talk about the general tips instead. That's totally cool. I just wanted to be able to offer
I have a question for mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so like we can look at my website. It's reedsuppliescanada.ca, but essentially what it is like an e-commerce store, and we sell reed supplies like to double reed players, so like the Bassoon Noble players.
Okay.
And one question that I struggle with is, so like we have quite a few different products, but in like my industry, a lot of people are just like kind of concerned about like the technicals, like especially for Arcane, like what are the dimensions, how thick is it, where is it made, that kind of thing. And that's what drives a lot of that decision. But then when you're a beginner, you kind of like don't really know that. So like a lot of our competitors just will literally just list like in their product descriptions like the this like just the specifications and stuff. And so we're trying to kind of like shift that to be more like leading with why you need it and how you use it. But I just wasn't sure like if that's a good strategy or if it should just be like, should that live somewhere else? Like should it live in the product description, or should it live in like our blog, or should it live like on social media?
I'm gonna pull it up so I can get some context here.
Yeah.
Sorry, my the Zoom bar always gets in the way. What's the website called?
Reed Supplies Canada. So REED.
I sent you the link,
Yeah.
Jill.
Gosh. Thank you.
.com, is that right?
.com or .ca, they both work.
Okay. Okay, so my first answer before even looking at it is if you're not sure what strategy to follow, have you talked to your customers?
So like right now I've mostly talking to like professionals, but like we're trying to reach more into like the beginner market, which is harder.
Yeah, I get it. So like if you're not sure about something, the best route is always go to them and say like, what do you really want? Like what is it what problems do you have? And like, what are you looking for? And just like ask them open-ended questions and they'll give you the answer eventually. So I guess when we look at your website, the specific challenge that you have is it like looking at the products here? Like where direct me.
Yes. So like a lot of our messaging is kind of geared, especially like with our social media, we're trying to kind of gear it towards like creating like more of a community, and like this is why you would want to use a certain tool and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just kind of like with some of our product descriptions, just trying to figure out how to incorporate that into it.
Okay, so just to make sure that I understand you correctly, your competitors are like more solid, they're bigger businesses, and they just go straight to the specifications.
Yeah, like we sell the exact same products.
Okay, so then that's where you have an opportunity to really connect with them on a more personal level. So what things are they looking for? Like, do they care about local? Do they care about shopping small? Do they care about supporting small business? Like, do they care about some other piece of what it is that you're doing that we might be able to bring into it? If I can give you some examples here. So if you guys know Hairstrong, local business with her scrunchies. So I worked with her and she's selling scrunchies, yes, but she's also selling a women's empowerment movement, because you don't have to worry about your hair getting in your face when you're working out, which that alone is like so liberating, just to not have to stop and fix your hair every single time you're working out. So when you think about it like that, well, then people might even be more inclined to buy in because they're buying into that movement. And they also like supporting local, and they like that it's a women-owned business. So like not that those will be the exact same things for you, but like if you talk to your customers about other things that they care about, then maybe there's a way that you can position yourself next to the big guys. Like maybe some of them are sick of dealing with the big guys. Maybe they don't want to have to go through 10 different people before they can make their order.
Yeah, so like from the beginners that I have spoken with, like beginning musicians, like their biggest thing is that like they just don't understand what they're buying. Like their teacher just kind of gives them a list. Okay. And then they buy it, and then they have to rely on their teacher to figure out how to use these items. So like, I guess my question is just like, that's what we're kind of trying to make different, but should that messaging be like within individual products, or should it be like more general on like different web pages or through our other content that we produce?
Yeah, so you should put in places like your homepage, like here we are on your homepage, instead of it being shop now here, I would put the big promise here and find a big promise that unifies all types of customers that you want to reach. So how can you bring them together? If people that are new are really overwhelmed, it's a lack of information. Maybe they just need to know that they feel really supported by you. So maybe it can be something like, we'll help you find a solution for you regardless of your level of experience, or like showing off that you know what you're talking about for the people that are more experienced in buying for you, but also welcoming newbies into your group too. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
Should that happen like at the product level too, or just like product level should still be just like, these are the technicals?
I would, if you have to prioritize, start in your key spots where people are landing, because if they land on your homepage, they're not going to click through the products if they don't feel like they get it from here, right? So what is that larger mission? And how can you make them feel like, yeah, I'm in the right place, this is for me, and then get them to click to the next spot? Because conversions, like a lot of the time we think of conversions as that end sale, but actually conversion is getting them to click on a button to look at the product, or getting them to click from your Instagram page over to your website. Like that itself is a conversion. So how can you guide them to that next spot? And what can you say that makes them feel like they're in the right place and that they identify with you and the brand, and put it front and center, and then the sale comes afterwards. So this shop now can be here, but I would maybe put a little bit smaller. Actually tell them where they are first and why they should go keep scrolling down. And then the product descriptions, those are almost like yes, you would want to update those too, but start updating the other parts first and deal with those later, because then you can start selling them on the specific educational pieces around it, because you also don't want to like make product descriptions that are super lengthy. So if your competitors are doing that too, but they're just more, I'm assuming they just are better known, and that's why it's easier for them to get away with it. Like we, as like a small shoe business, you can't do the same as Nike right off the bat. Is that home?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything, or do you want to talk about?
Yes, I have a question. So I'm doing business to business, and so I'm basically a consultant, and I'm working with like organizations, businesses, or individuals that are looking to take action or use their voice towards forward movement for the empowerment of the Black community. And so I do this through supporting them in creating productions, events, shows, or different things like that. So basically helping them actually be a part of tangible change. And so my question is just, so now I'm working on a proposal, and what do you think needs to be included in a proposal? Or do you have a specific process that you use or steps that you use when creating a proposal? Do you use the same template, just kind of be creative with it? And kind of like, yeah, what would you suggest? I know I did like how you mentioned about the whole, you said what results you deliver, features, credibility, and a story that connects and relates. And so is that it, or is there something else?
Yeah, okay. I love that you're asking about a proposal. I love proposals. So can I ask a clarifying question first?
Yeah.
You're already in conversations with them?
Yes.
And what do they already know about you? Like what have you already shared? Like,
well, so they know that I am starting out. And so they actually don't know they know what I'm capable of, because outside of my business, I do advocacy work. So, but they don't know when it comes to the business of it. That's why they asked for a proposal of what can you actually offer? Like, can you show us what your plan would be? You know,
okay.
what like stuff like that. So the business aspect of it, because I'm new, they don't know the business aspect as planning it, but like who I am and the fact that I can actually deliver and something I can do. They know, that's why they asked me.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk general, then we'll get specific. So in general, if you're the type of business that needs proposals, that'll be like mine. I look at the website as a lead generation tool to get them onto my calendar. So your website might not be asking them to actually hand over their credit card at that point, but it's getting them on a call. So I usually look at it like a piece of like the sales pipeline, if that makes sense. So they'll come from social media, they'll land on my website, they'll go to the homepage. Maybe you have different options there, and then they go to your calendar. And if you're putting on your website, like you don't want to overwhelm them with information, this is why I'm asking what they already know. That's where you would put the big transformations, that high level overview, and kind of direct them to the next spot. And then I usually recommend putting together a services guide that can get a bit more specific, so that when they reach out, you can say, oh, thank you. Like, here's maybe like 2 buckets of things that I do. And here's a couple baseline packages of what I can put together, so that you can give them a little bit more information at that step in their buying journey, essentially. because at this point they're more interested in you and they might be weighing you versus somebody else. So like getting a little bit more specific at that point. And then you want to get them on the call, continue that process, and then the proposal will be the spot where you kind of drive the point home.
Right.
Now, because you don't have all of that, I don't know where you are in that kind of pipeline or like what you've set up there. Still thinking of the proposal as driving the point home, but you might just need to add in a little bit more supplementary stuff. So that's why I talk about like the high level first. So in your proposal, start it off by basically restating what transformation they want. And I've templatized this for myself. You'll be able to find a way that you can do that too. But essentially it starts off with, hey, it sounds like you want the following for your business. And then I list like 6 key points that are things that they said in that sales call, like their exact words. And I kind of weave it in with my own words too. So it just shows that I'm listening, not that like I'm copy pasting. But yeah, just like picking up on those little nuances and how they describe certain things, because everybody will start to describe what their challenges are in different ways and what it is that they want to create in different ways. And then you also want to give them an overview of like what that timeline would look like for you. Like what is it that you're going to make, but also what are the different steps? Because people feel, especially if you're going to charge higher prices, like premium rates, you need to make them feel like you have a specific process that you're following and that you're going to support them through that because they're paying for that experience. And everybody else who has service-based businesses, like this can be true for all of you too. So talk about the timeline, what's included in each spot. You don't need to get actual dates down. I do like step 1, step 2, and then the dates get locked in when they actually click yes. But breaking it down into steps and like what kind of commitment they would need, like, do you need any meetings with them, rough amount, and what are you going to be doing at that stage? Also include like an overview of like the outcome, so like the deliverables. And then you show the transformation through, if you can, social proof. So I know you might not have that right away, but that's true for everyone too. And you should have tons of social proof everywhere. If you haven't done any jobs yet, if you can look to similar jobs that you've done in the past and get testimonials from them, if you can look to your peers, or if you can maybe do like small trades with some of your peers, like, hey, I'll do this one thing for you if you do this, just to like try to get that social proof in the beginning. Because that's how you'll sneak in those results and transformation and back up everything that you've been promising this entire time in a way that doesn't feel really like pushy, because it's not your voice at that point, it's all of your happy customers at that point. So strategically putting those throughout the proposal too. And by strategically, I mean, once you start collecting lots of testimonials, you can use ones that are like, maybe this person is really similar to a past person, or maybe their problem is really similar, or the result they want is really similar, so that they start to identify themselves in your dream clients that you've already helped.
Right, right.
Even better is if you can have case studies that you can link to, videos if you can. That's been really helpful for me too. Like if I have my star clients, I'll get them, if they're like good on video, I'll ask them if they mind filming a video, and they'll literally do like a 2 to 5 minute video of, hey, Jill's future clients, here's why you should hire her. And that kind of stuff helps a lot too. And they don't need to be shared publicly. Like it's just a Google Drive link that I have linked in the proposal. So like they know it's not going to everyone, it's just going to those ones that might need that extra little push.
Okay.
So considering that high level overview, how much of that can you get into your current proposal? You also might want to include a bit about you and like your expertise, because you might not have had that already laid out in front of them. And especially if your proposal is going to be reviewed by more than just the person you've been talking to, reinforce everything so that nothing gets lost in translation. Does that help?
Yes, yes, it does. And when it comes to social proof, because the work that I'm doing is advocacy work, can social proof be, because this is the first time I'm actually consulting as a job, but I've been a part of projects that I wasn't being paid for, and I've done different things in different areas, but not specific to this. Can I still use that?
Yeah, because it's still you.
Okay.
Just choose the pieces that are like if you were part of a bigger business or something, like make sure it's okay for you to use it, like check with them. Or maybe ask the contact that you had there, or like if it's volunteer work, that doesn't matter. Like
Okay.
technically I could reach out to David after and ask him for testimonial, right? But like it's just if they're willing to, and if they've given explicit permission to, and if it's relevant. You don't want to just pull up everything. Like I won't go ask, I worked in the service industry for 10 years. I won't go ask one of my old managers from Frog if they want to write a testimonial for me for a proposal for like a big project, but like choosing the specific ones, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the slides just to give you guys a bit of an overview here, since not everybody has websites yet. And this will be good for any kind of copy that you're writing, whether it's social media, whatever, but I just talk about websites because I really, really recommend starting with your website, because it's kind of like the home base of your brand. Like, yes, you can sell on social media now with like the shopping apps and all of that, but that's still borrowed land. You want the website traffic. Sooner you have that up and running, the better. And then you can also do tons of other things like email marketing and actually capturing those leads, even if they're not ready to buy right then. So yeah, start with the website. And before you start with anything, you want to analyze your competitors. So what are they doing? What's working for them? What's not working? And then also, how do you fit? So I don't look to my competitors to see what they're doing so I can replicate it. I look to them to see what they're not doing, and that's where I'm going to go. So that's where in David's intro of me, I don't want to do the same as everyone else. Like I actively try to be different from them. And I don't care if that might make some people angry or feel a little bit uncomfortable because they just don't like it because, oh, Jill's not super professional, because that doesn't matter. What matters is getting people results and getting attention and being yourself, being true and authentic to yourself, and building a business that feels like that. So look at your competitors, take your emotions out of it, think really analytically and think, where do I fit? How am I different? And then next, it's not about your reader, or it's not about you, it's about your reader. And that's especially true above the fold. So when we were looking at the first website with the reads, that's why I said that shop here, shop now at the top, that's not going to get that many conversions, because that's just saying, hey, to come give me money. Instead, you want to say that big promise, identifying the reader, showing them that they're in the right place, and getting them to go to the next section. Yes, you can have that call to action there, but it shouldn't be the only thing there. And you might even consider moving it a little bit farther down the page so you can sell them a little bit more before they click it, depending on the type of business that you have. Next is, before you write anything, I want you to actually outline the entire thing that you're going to write. So if that's your website, map out their flow throughout the website. Like they're going to land on the homepage, then what? Then they're going to land on your services page, then what? Like what happens? And when I was talking about your proposal, I mentioned the buying journey and getting them onto your calendar, and then maybe sending a services guide, and then getting them on a sales call. So you always need to have that big picture vision of what their buying journey is and what their level of awareness is, and guide them through. So even if you're writing for social media or emails or something, you just need to have that high level overview before you start writing, and it'll make writing a whole lot easier. Like if you've talked to your customers and you've made an outline, writing takes no time. Next is simplifying the navigation and minimizing clicks. And this is true on websites, but just like in general, you want to make it really easy for people. So don't have a ton of options. Too many options is overwhelming. You want to make them feel supported and guided, and just like, how easy can you make it? And then there's also so much data around the more clicks that there are, the more people that you'll lose. So if you can minimize that in some way and make it super easy. So if you have the option of like a 2-step checkout versus a 1-step checkout, always go with a 1-step checkout, for just a quick example there, minimizing those clicks. And then on websites, but also in all pieces of copy, each page or each piece of copy that you're writing should have one clear message and one call to action, because again, too many options is going to confuse people. So if you're writing a newsletter that's like, hey, click over here and then go do this and then sign up for my contest and then do this, like they're not going to do anything probably. Instead, tell one story, deliver one message, one call to action, and then park the other stuff for a different day. And Then when we're thinking about websites, though, this is true on every other page except for your home page, because your home page is kind of that like traffic director. Like I like to think of it as an assistant pointing people to where they need to go, especially if you have multiple different buckets of what you offer or multiple different types of products, different categories. Just it is the one that's telling people where to go. And then those other pages should be clearly focused. And then in general, when writing, you need to keep it simple. So cut anything that's redundant or not necessary. Stick to only what's relevant for your reader. What do they need to know to do that next step in the process? And that's where I mentioned conversions aren't just sales at the end of the day. They're clicks, they're email signups. What do they need to know to get them to that next step? And then finally, showing instead of telling. So what I mean by this is instead of saying things like, we offer great customer service, that means nothing. Everybody says that they offer great customer service. Show them how you offer great customer service. And you can show them by explaining your process. So if your service, mapping out like, this is how I do things. This is what it's like working with me. This is what you're going to feel like. This is what you get at the end of the day. And if you are selling a product, maybe explain how shipping works or how their ordering works. Like have some piece of that in there. And you back it up with more of that social proof. So if you look at my website at some point, you don't have to, but on my website on my copy and strategy page, I have something like other copywriters follow formulas and rules, and I break all of the rules and build it from scratch for you. And I'm also going to take a high level look at your entire business in general. It's kind of like hiring a business coach. And then there's a testimonial right under that from somebody who says, hiring Jill was just like hiring a business coach. So it supports what I'm saying in the copy, and it shows them that what I'm saying is true. So it builds legitimacy there. Does anyone have any questions about these? Are you able to see how this ties back to whatever it is that you're writing? I like scroll through all of your faces to kind of like read the room. I wish that we could do things in person again because I just like reading where everyone's at. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit because we started talking about content at the beginning and we did a bit about copy and all of that. And I feel like you just need to have this high level understanding of all of the things in order to go out into the world and start converting people. So if you want to create valuable content on your social media pages or your blog or your email list or anything like that, so you can get them into the places that are going to make that conversion in terms of the copy, you need to remember again that it's not about you. And you need to remember that all content just has a few jobs. And that is either to inspire, educate, entertain, or sell. And that selling should be less often. So if you, for example, look at your Instagram schedule for a week, maybe only 1 or 2 posts are actually selling hard, while the other ones are telling stories or entertaining them or bringing in that social proof again. Maybe they're testimonials, customer reviews, that sort of thing. So it's this balance. And that way, people won't feel like you're being overly pushy because people have a bit of an aversion to be outwardly sold to. It'll have more of a natural feel to it, and like you're supporting them and guiding them through the buying journey again there. So whenever you are writing something, I want you to ask yourself, what is the goal of this? Like, what am I trying to do? What is the core story that I'm telling? And like, what category does it fall into? Like, is this inspirational or educational or entertaining in some way? And kind of on the 2 ends of the spectrum that I see a lot of like mistakes in are people either go really hard into the selling and then it just like doesn't get much engagement anywhere because people just don't want to be sold to like that all the time. Like, yes, selling is great, but you don't want to just go too hard into it. Or they go too hard into like giving tips in that education side. But education is so much more than that. And if you just give tips all the time, like it's like, yes, the odd one is interesting, but like it's just not as well-rounded or showcasing all that you know and all that you are and really making that overall big picture sell essentially. So using me as an example again, my Instagram and my blog and my emails, sometimes I'm telling stories about my business journey, or sometimes I'm telling stories about my clients and like wins that they've had. And not in like a pushy way, just like, hey, this was really awesome. And this is how we started it. And this is the solution that we came to. And here's what the results were. Or I might educate on like my processes, or educate on me as a person, like what I'm all about, at the same time as maybe giving some tips. Or I might entertain them. Like I'm always talking about my plants behind me in on my Instagram stories, for example. Like people love to see my plants, and when I get new plants, and like that's entertaining to them. So whatever, if they like that, I'm going to keep putting that in, and then it mixes things up so that when I come in and I go, hey, I actually have this new course available, then they're more likely to sell because they feel like they know me, they like me, and they trust me, because I've been telling these stories and trying to inspire and entertain and educate them the entire time. Does that make sense? Is everyone following on that? Cool. So if you're thinking about, we don't have to talk about this, but if you guys wanted to, if you're thinking about things that you've been putting out in general lately, what category did that fall under? And how can you improve that for next time to make it even more specific?
I have a question about that. I've been seeing, and I've heard a lot of people say, you know, tell a story, tell a story. And so I've seen a lot of people that will like tell a story so long that you have to like hit read more, or like, you know, show more or something. And I don't ever, I always like read the beginning, you know, skim through and then read the end.
Yeah.
Rarely ever actually read everything. But a lot of people are saying that's kind of a good thing. So I'm like, if I'm like that, do you think my customers are like that? Or is that just me thing? Or is that something that you don't do? Or should I start doing that? Because I have tried doing it. And yeah, sure, some people do that. But I'm like, I don't feel like social media, the space where everyone's trying to go quick, is a space to be putting something so long. But that could just be me.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few parts to it. First of all, I want you to do something that feels good for you. Like if writing those long posts doesn't feel good for you, then you don't have to do it. You could do a video instead, right? You can tell stories in different ways. Video is actually a great way for everybody to showcase who they are. And like there's a piece of copy to it because you can write your scripts beforehand. And that really helps people get to know you and like you and trust you a lot because they can see your true personality through it. So that's that first part. I don't want you to do it if it doesn't feel good to you. I mean, of course, push yourself out of comfort zones a little bit if you know that it's probably going to benefit you, but don't think that you have to do something just because the latest expert said that they do it. But then at the same time, just because you're not the person that clicks on it and reads all of it, that doesn't mean everybody's like that, because there's different types of buying personas. And you want to make sure that you're capturing all of them in the way that you're writing. So yes, lots of people don't read a lot. Like I'm a skimmer, but I also write people $5,000 or $5,000, 5,000 word sales pages that make them a lot of money because somebody reads every single word on that page. But when I'm writing a page like that, or like a longer Instagram post, I try to format it in a way that's friendly for everyone. So having headlines, lots of subheadlines, so that you can catch those skimmers. And it should make sense if they're just reading all the headlines, but then also going into the details in between each one, because there's some people that want to read every single word before they feel comfortable reaching out to you. And then you can add in like the video component, because some people prefer to watch versus reading, and then making sure wherever possible that you have those like closed captions on it, so that if they're watching and they don't have headphones on, or for accessibility reasons or whatever, just making sure you're covering your bases and thinking of the different types of people. And if you're thinking about Instagram specifically, where you can't like actually format well, I use emojis and like caps and stuff like that, versus if you were doing like a long form sales page to sell a specific service or product, that's where you could actually use like different types of font and different sizes of font, and just making sure that it's readable and skimmable through all of the headlines too. Cool. Do we have any other questions around this one? Can I go to next? Also, I know I'm at the hour, but I have extra time if you want me to.
If you're happy to stay, we're happy to have you.
Okay, I'm okay hanging out if no one's bored by me. Okay, so this one is just some do's and don'ts that I like to kind of wrap up with, because when you're working on your messaging or improving your copywriting skills, or just talking about marketing in general, There's a few rules of thumb that will help you, and one of those is remember that it's not about you. But a few more would be this. So you do want to build community by resharing posts from your stakeholders to your stories, commenting on their posts and supporting each other. So you guys here are a community, and you can all be supporting each other in so many different ways through all of your marketing, and just like looking to everybody around you and saying, hey, you're doing this cool thing that kind of ties with my audience. Maybe they wouldn't mind showing that. I share a lot of my clients, and I share lots of local businesses on my social media pages too, on stories specifically, just giving them little shout outs here and there. And then they usually return the favor. And then it also helps you keep those connections and get return customers and all of that sort of thing. And the next one is to make sure that you are showing up confidently, because people are naturally attracted to confident people. So if you don't believe in your offer, nobody else will. And I know this is super hard in the beginning, but confidence, I am convinced that confidence is learned, because I used to be the person that would literally hide behind my mother when I was at family get-togethers. Like I could not talk to my like aunts and uncles. So if I can figure it out and be known as this loud person, then all of you can figure it out too. And whatever it is that you need to do before you're showing up online, before you're writing anything, just pump yourself up first. And a more like tangible tip is, instead of writing in the passive voice, which is like, I am running, write in the active voice. So like I run, or I ran, or like just like making it really powerful. So going back and editing everything that you're writing to say, am I kind of like wishy-washing around this? Or am I actually standing up for what I believe in? The next is don't copy others or steal content, and always try to make sure that your content is unique to you. So while yes, keeping up with trends, I want you to be creative. So let's talk about like reels, for example. Everybody is doing reels, and everybody's doing those like finger pointing reels, which are really awkward. I absolutely hate them. I tried it. Like, don't do it. They're not good. They don't give anyone any value. So you don't need to do those just because everybody else is doing those. You do need to check out that medium, that channel, but you can come up with a strategy that is unique to you. You don't have to look at like what your competitors are doing or what so-and-so who's really successful is doing. Instead, say, how can I make this about me? And some of my best performing reels are me talking really fast, like trying to get things in 30 seconds, and like just like choppy little things, so little tips, or like behind the scenes and that kind of thing. And I just came up with that on my own with experimenting. So what can you do that feels good to you? And then that way I don't have to do any dancing, because I should not be allowed to dance anywhere. And then finally, don't compare yourself to others online. Of course, analyze where you can improve, but don't let emotions lead. And for example, more followers does not always equal more sales. I've worked with handfuls of people who are Insta famous, but they're not making any money in their business because they're not focusing on those like key sales driving things. So don't get all caught up in those vanity metrics. And then this is the last one, I swear. Final strategies to grow your brand. It all comes down to that big picture and like paying attention to, I guess, like the details within these. So like there's 4 areas that I've identified, and that's your messaging. So a really deep understanding of what makes your business unique, and learning how to communicate that really clearly for your people. Because if you don't know exactly what you're doing or how you do it, then it's going to feel really hard for you to like say those one-liners. And it's also okay if this evolves, and if this is easy sometimes, and then maybe as you grow it's a little bit harder. Like this is something that I've been struggling with as my business has grown, like how to describe other things that I've been adding into what I do. And that's okay, but just try to always get as clear as possible. And then next is consistency. So I touched on this in the beginning too, but just making sure that you create a plan and you stick to it. And that doesn't mean like you have to post on X channels X times a week or a day or whatever. It just, there's no main like repeatable thing for everybody, if that makes sense. Like it's just your business, what fits into your lifestyle, what you have time for right now, what you have resources right now. Just create that valuable content, engage with others, hang out where your audience does, keep pushing them back to your website, which is where the sale is going to happen most of the time. And only do it if it feels good for you. Like I don't want you guys to lose sleep to make sure that you're posting on Instagram X amount of times a day. Like you need to do something that you can stick with, otherwise you'll get burnt out and it's just not gonna work. So making sure that you're consistent in your way. And then mindset. So mindset is big in business, and I can talk about this after too, but specifically a mindset of selling is helping. Selling isn't about just getting dollars in your bank account, but you need to actually believe that you're offering a service that helps people. And if you don't believe that yet, figure out how you can, because your audience will be able to tell when you are genuinely trying to help them and when you're empathetic to the challenges that they have and are trying to solve those solutions, or solve those problems, give them solutions, rather than just, hey, I want to make a bunch of money. Like, of course, making money is great. I want all of my clients, I want everybody that I meet to make a ton of money, because then we get all this freedom and life is happy, but it's more than that. And you also won't feel so bad about selling or awkward about it if you realize that you're helping people. And then finally, influence. So you need to build influence through that idea of know, like, and trust. If anybody has not read How to Win Friends and Influence People yet, I highly recommend it, because even though it's a really old book, that stuff translates to the modern day. And I think it just comes down to like actually caring about people in the long run. And then finally, a lot of marketing, copywriting, everything like that is experimenting, analyzing, and trying again. So be creative, develop a plan, take action, and keep moving forward if you fail. I'm done.
That was awesome, Jill.
Cool.
Are you able to stick around a little bit longer if anyone has questions?
Yeah, I budgeted another extra 30 minutes after this, knowing that I have a tendency to do this.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So the presentation was excellent. I took a ton of notes. Was that
Cool.
different? Was it different than last year?
It was my same slides, but I don't know. Like I said, the slides are just the base point, and then I kind of ramble. So it was probably entirely different based on how I talked about it.
I definitely pulled a lot of good nuggets out of there.
Cool.
I really liked when you said, I gotta go back to my notes here. Looking for those similarities in the moment when I never really considered website copy in that way of trying to find that similarity between, what you offer, who you are, and putting them kind of in it from a copy perspective. I always understood understand your target market, things like that, but I don't know, something hit me a little differently when you mentioned that, especially when someone's like in that evaluation consideration phase, you can really show the similarities between you. I think, I don't know, that really hit me. And I was like, because I'm writing something right now for someone else's website, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think about it that way. So that was good. Thank you.
I'm glad you like that one. I can give you a specific example for that one too. So if you guys look at my about page, it says something like, my husband says I need to stop using my star sign as an excuse, but I'm obviously a Gemini and my career choice makes that clear. And that statement is specifically chosen because I know a lot of my dream clients are into astrology and into personal development, and most of them are women, and most of them are married or have significant others. And it just kind of all ties into that. So many discovery calls are like, oh, I love Geminis, or, oh, my husband says I need to stop doing that too, or, oh, they just connect with that in a way. And they've told me that they picked me over somebody else because they felt connected to me. So that's where the similarities come in.
I love it. I love it. I did actually see, because I was looking at your website today and I noticed that statement there, and I was thinking that there was a reason it was there. So that's awesome. Great example.
There's a reason. My current website is a little bit of patchwork because so many shifts, but you can just, it's not totally do as I say, not as I do at that stage yet, but there are some points where I'm like, this is a little icky right now, but I just got something up because you got to take imperfect action.
That's the entrepreneur curse. No entrepreneur I've met ever likes their website.
Well, I liked it and then I outgrew it. And then I want to switch from Squarespace to Showit. And I tried to write in a way that didn't butcher the design, which copy always comes before design. So yeah, that's the struggle.
Well, good luck with you shifting over to the platform.
Yeah. So anyways, I know that you had those other questions. So I typed stuff up, but I don't have to answer those too. I just can make myself available if anyone has anything else they want to ask.
Looks like Rachel put a question in the chat.
I'll open the chat here.
She's asking you to tell her about the templates and courses that you offer that you mentioned earlier.
Cool. Oh, shoot. Could you guys not see the screen when I was sharing websites?
No, that's okay.
I thought I shared the entire screen. I was just sharing the presentation. Oops. So yeah, I have courses and templates in my shop. So if you go to wordsbyjill.com and then you click over to the shop, there's website copy templates, email marketing templates. I have an Instagram course too that teaches you how to plan a month's worth of Instagram content in a single day. Because I like efficiency and getting stuff done and not wasting your time on things that don't matter. But marketing matters, but I just want you to be super efficient about it. So yeah, I have a bunch of little things in there. And I have a larger course that I launch a couple times a year. I don't know when I'm going to do the next one, but it just goes through the entire process. That's like brand strategy, positioning, personality, writing websites that convert in that way that I said I look at them, like lead generation tools, going through some sales techniques, content marketing, that kind of thing. So that's the big one, but the smaller pieces are in the shop if anyone wants to look at them. Yeah, thumbs up. I mean, I think they're cool. Lots of other people do too.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, and definitely take advantage of those, guys. Who else has a question? I'm going to pick on one of you in a second with your website.
I wanted to know if you could suggest a scheduling software. Is the free one okay, or is there one that you are more keen to use? For
meetings or for Instagram?
For meetings.
Okay, so for meetings, if your business sounds like it's kind of like mine, like service-based, like you're the consultant, I would eventually look into a full CRM because that's going to save your life. Like I thought that I needed to hire a VA 2 years ago. I still have not hired a VA. I've hired specialists instead, which I think is a better use of money for my way of growing because I want to keep my team small. So to answer the question, Calendly is really good at the beginning. Acuity is good at the beginning. The free ones are usually enough if you only need to book like one meeting. Otherwise, they're low cost. They're like $10, but $10 a month, I think. But if you're a service-based business, I would definitely recommend getting a full CRM. And I really love Dubsado.
What a CRM is.
So it's like a client management software. And there's a few different ones. There's like massive ones like HubSpot and stuff like that. If you're just a solopreneur like that one is good. Honeybook is good too. The thing with Honeybook versus Dubsado is that Honeybook doesn't let you do a lot of the automation pieces where Dubsado does. So parts of my workflow are automated. So people submit a form on my website. It automatically sends them my services guide and a link to book a call. I have it in language that helps them like self-audit if they think that they're a good fit to come onto a one-on-one call or if they would be better suited for a template or something like that. So that I'm not getting on too many sales calls and then them going nowhere just because it's not a good fit. Then after a sales call, have my proposal template, contract, invoice, all of that set up. So it's automated right after the call. It all adds into their file. I just click on what I need, customize that top part, like I was saying about their specific words, and send it off. It takes me about 20 minutes. And then they can review, sign, pay, fill in all of their own client information. So I don't have to fill it in all while I'm off doing whatever it is that I'm doing. So all the things that you would have to do yourself or you would have an assistant do, and then it continues to automate like invoice reminders and stuff like that. So Honeybook is a good starting point. When you want more robust, go up to Dubsado kind of thing, and then HubSpot is even more robust, is from my understanding.
Thank you.
Cool. I love systems and organization and stuff.
Me too. Looks like Janan has her hand up.
I do, yes, thanks. I have a question about like authenticity in your social media and your copy and things like that. And so my business, we haven't launched yet. So my husband and I are starting a dairy farm store. So we're going to be selling milk, yogurt, and gelato on a store that we're in the process of building on our own farm. but it's not open yet. So anyways, it like a lot of the story, I guess, around it is sort of related to like it being a family business, and there's a lot of history there, and like we're trying to do more innovative things with the farm and sort of that kind of story. But then on the other hand, like I'm not really sure how much information about what we want to do to like share, because we're trying to start this blog kind of social media presence, like to capture building the farm store before we even open next year. But there's like a couple other dairy farm stores that are also opening like in the area. So we kind of have this like back and forth of like how to differentiate ourselves and like carve out our story versus like these other businesses that we know are also opening, and like, but we don't exactly know what they're doing and they don't know what we're doing. And so it's just like, but we all are probably going to open around the same time. So I don't know if you have any like where should we start with like building our story, like even though the store isn't even open yet?
Yeah. I like the idea of bringing them along for the ride. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter what your competitors are doing because nobody's going to do it or say it exactly like you. So if they do start saying things, then you'll be able to analyze it from there. But I would just now start putting out things that feel good to you, that you think are going to hit home. And social media is a great place to experiment with that, because you can try like talking about a specific topic for maybe a month. And if it gets some engagement, cool. And if it doesn't, then go on to the next one. And it's not like a big project, like an evergreen spot, like your website, for example. But yeah, you can experiment with it. And I would also look at it from, this is like so woo-woo, but like the abundance mindset versus like the scarcity, like, oh, I'm worried about what other people will think or say, or like what my competitors are doing. And I know there's always the fear of my competitors are going to steal my secrets and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter if they do. Like, I've had people copy me and like steal my ideas and whatever, but they can't do it how I do it. And that'll be the same for you. So if you just keep thinking of like there's more than enough customers for everyone to go around, and people are going to connect with you who are meant to connect with you, then it takes a lot of the fear out of it. Does that help? Or was that too like out there?
No, it's helpful. I think it's not necessarily like I'm not, I think, like as nervous about the other places, like the other stores that are opening. I think it's more just like the unknown aspect of it for moving into the like B2C kind of environment. Like a lot of the other farm, like we talk to the other farm stores too, but like, or people, families that are opening their stores. So I guess we're kind of just trying to like figure out what it is about us that is unique and how to like translate that into our copy and like our presence and everything.
Yeah. That's a really hard thing to do. So it's fine if that's a challenge right now. Personally, if I were you, I would rely on the community in this room. Like maybe ask some people what makes you unique, if they know like what it is that they're specifically looking for, like if they're potential customers down the road. But a lot of entrepreneurship, at least you have your partner to help you with it, but a lot of entrepreneurship is lonely and us trying to figure this stuff out. But if you have a community of people that you could ask, they might be able to draw out some things that you couldn't see from because you're inside it. If that helps.
Yeah, thanks.
Does anyone have anything else?
I got one more thing. I have a lot of questions.
That's okay.
Kind of going on what Janan said, where do you start your story? Do you start your story intentionally when it comes to what you want them to know, or do you start your story at the very beginning of your journey as a business? Like, just how do you know where is that start of the story? Because I can start my story where, like all of the struggles that I've gone through or when I started to make a move, when I start to create impact, or like where does that story start to make it relevant?
Yeah, I think it's like picking and choosing pieces, if that makes sense. Like they don't need to know the whole thing, but what pieces will really paint that picture? And you're still telling the truth, you're just like cutting out the boring bits and the parts that aren't relevant to that. Like I could go into so many different tangents, but I don't. I stick to like specific pieces of my story that I know are going to resonate with my ideal clients, and those similarities between us. So an example would be I play World of Warcraft with my husband, but that has nothing to do with anything that I'm selling. And it doesn't really like hit home for my people. Like sometimes they might think, if I like mention it, clients might think that's funny, but like that's not going to make them buy from me. But a lot of my clients, because they're women in personal development, a lot of them are wellness and that kind of thing, I'm going to talk about my love of green juice and balancing that with red wine because that's really true to me. I'm going to talk about how I work out every day, like all of like that I love to be outside, that like I'd rather bike than drive, like all of these things that are parts of my story that are way more relevant to that type of person. And I haven't even like pigeonholed into just wellness professionals. I have a client that's a doggy daycare, but she's also into personal development. So those pieces of my story that connect to their similarities, they don't need to know the rest because it's just like, why? Cool. Anyone else?
I guess she's got her mic off. Any other questions, guys? No, none for the group. I have a couple. Some of the ones I sent over to you. I was just curious if, you can be as general or specific as you like, but I know, especially as you've had a lot of growth and changes over the last year, I just thought, what's like a good piece of advice or a lesson you've learned over the last couple of years that, you feel would be impactful for these individuals here who are, at the early stages of starting a business?
Yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons over the last year. I don't want to like be presumptuous or like pitch. I'm not gonna pitch myself, but like I was on a podcast recently with my mentors, and I shared a lot in that podcast. So that might be a good place if people are looking for like a big picture behind the scenes thing. It was over an hour long. I don't know how they got it. They have a good editor too, so it was a long interview. So that would be a good place to start if you guys want to know like the broader story. But essentially, like I think I said this at the beginning, the challenges keep coming. I kept thinking I would get to this level and it would be easier, and it's not easier. It's a lot harder. There's a lot more at stake, and there's a lot more that I'm working towards, but you become like better equipped to deal with those. And I've also realized that almost every single one of my challenges comes back to mindset. So like I look at copy as that big picture. And I was adding in strategy and coaching to all of it, like offer optimization. And I didn't realize that other copywriters don't do that. And I also was scared to own that because I had all of these like limiting beliefs around who I should be and what I should be doing and what I should be offering. And then it took a lot of my current clients telling me, no, hey, like you are our business coach, to actually own that title. And a lot of work behind the scenes to like feel okay with it and put it out into the world. So yeah, a lot of it comes back to like mindset. That was a bit of a ramble, but that podcast, if you want to find it, it's linked on my Instagram page. If you click the link in my bio, there's a spot that has like all of the features that have been on recently. And it's the Copywriter Club podcast with Rob and Kira, who have helped me through a lot of this stuff. So that's part of it. And then also finding a community and sticking with it, and finding yourself mentors, but then also understanding that there's a difference between coaching and consulting and mentorship. And you pay for coaches and you pay for consultants. And then from there, you develop relationships with those people, and they might develop a special interest in with you. And then they become more of like a mentor figure. I found that was really helpful information to learn, because you go about and you're like, I need to find a mentor. Well, no, your mentors actually pick you. Like you can find a coach, but it has to be like a mutual thing, and you have to learn from it. And I actually learned that from another guy named Brian Kurtz, who's a genius in the marketing world. So if you look up Brian Kurtz, that's another good one. Wow, so many tangents here. But the Copywriter Club podcast, finding community and asking people for help and like owning the things that you can do.
I think that was a great answer, because a lot of my questions usually end with a recommendation of a book or a podcast or other things. So
Yeah.
you kind of nailed it all in one go without me having to say anything. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I think the podcast that you mentioned, the Copywriter Club, is that what it was?
Yeah, it's called the Copywriter Club podcast. And if you type in the Copywriter Club Jill Wise, I'll probably show up on Google. But it was all about like finding the real you. So I got some really bad business advice last year around this time. And it was specifically to dumb myself down to be more likable. And yeah. And I went with it for a while. I was like trying to be like more approachable and like vanilla and like, you know, like professional. And then I realized that's not working. That's not very authentic. That's not what I'm even showing my own clients what to do. But like I had hired a consultant because I saw the value in having an outside perspective, but that was not the consultant to be hiring. And you do more and you can be more impactful and you can grow a lot faster, which I've personally experienced when you are acting true to yourself and like not being afraid to show up as that. And now that's why I'm like, I'm going to do what I want to do, not what my competitors are doing. And like playing a photo shoot, I did a photo shoot a couple weeks ago and I'm like, yeah, I'm a copywriter and like marketing person and business coach, but how artsy can we get these? Like, how can we make these like more like a photo shoot? Like, how can we make them more fun? Because that's what's going to stand out on Instagram, not another picture of me sitting at my desk. So yeah, don't tone yourself down and think of the things that make you special. Like I was scared of being my opinionated and bossy, sweary self on Instagram, but like that's what it's like. Like I'm kind of proud of myself. I didn't swear through this workshop, but like it happens a lot. So just owning those pieces. Another tangent. I can't answer succinctly.
It's okay. I answer questions exactly the same way. Eventually you get where you're going, even if you don't really know where you were going. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I love it. I think you hit us with a ton of information, very valuable, and so many tidbits. And I think the authenticity part is a tough one for most new entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. And my last question I have for you is around that. I'm just thinking like, so you get this bad business advice, right? And at what point did you come to the final realization that you were being inauthentic? Like what was like the tipping point of like, no, this is wrong. I need to go back the other way?
Honestly, like full transparency, I had a launch flop at like when it shouldn't have, because I was doing all of the right things. I was doing all the things that get my clients like massive launches, and mine just didn't go well. And I was looking at it and like my mentors were looking at it too. And like nothing, like it didn't feel right. And we were trying to figure out why. Like I have a big list, I have all of these things. And then I just realized, you know, like I've been feeling like I've been putting myself in these boxes and like I need to show up in a certain way. And I just switched it from there. And then from there, like every single month this year so far, I've hit the goals that I set out for myself. Like my business has been growing and things are like clicking into place. And I'm even figuring out how to work only 4 days a week and like not making any less. So like things are working now. And at that point I was like so worried about what people were thinking of me and saying the right thing, and worried that I would seem too much, because that was what I was told. You're too much. You need to tone yourself down. Like you need to, like, I guess the way that I do things and approach things is like, you guys see, I talk fast, and I'm like, you have to work hard if you want it. Like you just got to go out and do the thing. And the people that get ahead are the ones that are willing to do the stuff that others aren't willing to do. So I don't sugarcoat that. And I was like that before. So probably the last time I presented, I was still kind of in that mindset, but then somewhere around, I guess it would maybe depend, somewhere around like May of June last year through the summer is when like things just didn't feel quite right because of that bad advice that I was trying to tone myself down with. So that was a good wake up. And then I figured it out and everything's fine.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have the authentic, real you here with us then today, because I wouldn't want anything else other than, you know, someone being true to themselves. So with that, Jill, I thank you for your time with us today. It's been awesome. And guys, if you have questions beyond this presentation, please reach out to Jill. Her contact information is on FOL. And yeah, let's do our, if you have your camera off and you could turn it on, that'd be really cool. But we always like to give an actual personal wave, you know, pretend like we're kind of in person for like a second. So Jill, thank you for giving us your time today. We really do appreciate it. And I hope we can do this again next year.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, I love doing this stuff. And I hang out the most on Instagram if you guys want to hang out with me there. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm in my DMs a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jill. We will find you on Instagram, and everybody give a good wave.
Bye guys. Have a good day.
Bye,
Happy learning. Bye.
Enjoy your week.
You too.
Awesome. Well, guys, I hope that was very impactful for you. I think I pulled a ton out of there. I always get a lot from anybody who spends a lot of time like studying other people's businesses from that like internal marketing perspective. They usually learn a lot of tips and tricks along the way. So definitely, you know, if you are looking for that specific help, I recommend reaching out to Jill. A lot of our graduates from Leap In last year have worked with her and have good things to say. So with that though, I think that is kind of all. We only had one speaker today, but if you have questions, now is definitely the time to ask it. Otherwise, we shall see you tomorrow. Please get a good sleep tonight. Please, before you go to sleep though, think about what you do and do not know about income tax for your business, because tomorrow's workshop is going to be a big one. It's usually the one that we have a lot of questions over. Our guest speaker, Taylor, who is the lovely Kelsey's husband, is donating his time. And this is a long workshop and it can be a little tough, but like if there's stuff you're not sure about, do some Googling tonight, do a little research, come with your questions, because you don't want to miss out on this opportunity, because usually you're paying for this direct advice and direct questions. Also, I sent you all an email for those of you who do have current websites that are public and published. Please send me your URL, respond to that email address, because Liz Gray, who is our data specialist, so she is going to be teaching an interactive workshop on Google Analytics and search engine marketing. But I need all of your addresses, your URLs to send over to her so she can start pulling some data from you guys. For those of you who have responded to me already, I thank you. But yeah, please send that off my way. Kelsey, Jenny, do you guys have anything else to add at the moment?
Did we want to do the hat picture since we have extra time?
Sure.
Do we want to? You guys have
I'm
to answer
asking the group. It's not a forced thing if nobody was prepared.
I totally forgot.
How about we plan for Thursday?
I'll wash my hair.
Because we have a guest coming tomorrow as well. You'll also be meeting your you already met them, your financial assistant tomorrow. So we don't want to take the photo when we're going to be ostracizing some guests. So if we can plan, that should give everyone the time they need to wash their hair and find their hats. Does Thursday work for everyone? Is anyone planning to not be here Thursday?
I won't be here at after 2, like between 2 and 3.
First thing on Thursday. It's going to be our icebreaker.
Finally make this happen.
So please show up on time on Thursday with your hair as you would like your hair to be, and your face as you would like your face to be, and your hat on your head. And we will finally get that photo.
So much anticipation of this photo.
I know, and now I feel like it's not even gonna live up to like the pun.
Oh,
like, oh.
It's gonna be so great. It's gonna be the best.
A lot of pressure.
I do want to add, and I just sort of snuck it in there while we were talking about the photo, that you will be also meeting your financial assistant tomorrow. The parameters are a little bit different than your creative assistants, where we have 6 of them. We only have 1 financial assistant, and they'll only be giving you about 4 hours of their time. The goal is to hopefully either look over your books or help you set up your books. So it's more of like a quick audit rather than actually doing the work. I will tell you, so for Taylor's presentation tomorrow, it's not going to be like the presentations we've had where he's going to click through some slides. He's going to be, you know, opening up the portal for how to register for HST and things like that. I know I've talked to at least a couple of you before, specifically about tax related questions. The workshop goes a lot better when you have questions of, you know, what do I do if I have this, if I'm importing this, I charge this type of service, you know, if I want to get a tip, how do I write it off, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit different format just because the information is so specific to each business. Probably more like your workshop that you had with Jamie about intellectual property is a little bit more what our workshop tomorrow is going to be like. All right. So no need for instant stress, Cecilia. He's not going to quiz you. And if he does, I won't feed him dinner. So it's all good. But if you would like to come with any questions that you have, he'll answer those for you. All right. So all about money tomorrow. And you all had $5,000. So we should at least have some accounting principles for at least that money. All right. Excellent. That's all I have. Jenny, are you good? Dave, any last things?
No, I think that is it for me at this moment in time. So guys, enjoy your evening and we will see you tomorrow at 1. As always, if anyone wants to stick around and ask questions, we're here. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's workshop. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
I just have one